Oh my God! What the hell?
He said, "What the hell?"
Damn!
I'm doing a show like this today.
All right, welcome back to Cover to Cover. We got a full panel of guests on here tonight. Some past guests, some past co-hosts, and I'm looking forward to getting into some of the stuff that we've done. We've done a lot of albums, 41 in total. So I have a half-baked scheme planned. We'll see if we can cut through it. Unfortunately, our friend Steve Whiting was unable to make it. Hopefully he can pop into the chat and say hello to everyone. It's probably a good thing, because if it was going to be a full panel, I was planning on running the stream from behind, which I could probably do that anyway. But what we're going to do is pull up my banners. We're going to kick it off with the worst of the bunch. And then we'll move on to either the... we'll talk about some of our favorite production stories, maybe. Bring in the favorite covers that we that we like from these albums. And finally... round it out with maybe our top 5, top 3, whatever. I know there's a lot of them on this list that I thoroughly love, thoroughly enjoyed, and I can't wait to get into it. Oh yeah, looky there.
Oh, there you go.
Such a beautiful album.
Love
it. He owned the 70s.
Oh, for sure.
You damn right.
For sure. Like maybe we can do a video just going over his 4 albums from that, the 4 classic albums that he did.
I'm going to piggyback on that comment, Puff, because I was thinking of an idea earlier about talking about specific maybe themes or genres, and picking out albums like that.
Yep.
I had a Danzig idea.
Should I compile all his music in one episode?
Yeah. It could be fun. All right.
Donnie.
We'll get this one out of the way.
So are we just going off the list?
Yes.
Donnie, say first where we got all these albums. Some of them were picked by us and some of them were from your list, right?
Yes. So the first season was just random ones that we had picked. I know Puff showed the album that was his pick when he came on, and there was a few that Steve Whiting had picked when he came on, Back in Black and Thin Lizzy, Jailbreak. He was also on later for Highway to Hell. Stellar AC/DC album. Jim had picked Straight to Hell by Hank 3. It's a great album that I'd never heard before, and I in essence I became a Hank 3 fan. The season 2 list was comprised of the magazine that I had picked up. Got to have it ready.
I think it was the Rolling Stones top 100 albums, right?
Well, it's similar to the Rolling Stones. This is modern or classic rock, modern classic rock.
Oh, that's what it was.
Okay, and it's just the typical type of. This was one of the albums that we did, Bat Out of Hell. A typical type of magazine that you would see me pick up. because I just feed off of that type of thing. I remember
you're not alone. You're not alone in that.
Yeah, I remember picking up Hit Parader a long time ago because they did these special issues of the Encyclopedia of Heavy Metal because I was still knee deep in all that stuff, and especially the classic, the subgenre, we'll call it a subgenre of classic rocks or that early '70s heavy rock. I follow a couple pages on Instagram that deal specifically with that. Introduced me to some new bands, some Australian heavy metal bands, stuff like that. But what I did for season 2 was I put together a list or a list based off of numbers that I reached out to the Instagram community. And I ended up with 27 albums in total. And I just, after I picked the albums as they fell on the list, or if we'd already done them, pulled them off a secondary list in this magazine, and then we did them by the wheel of names. Just randomly picked an album every week, which I thought was really fun. That's something we're going to keep doing going forward as we develop lists and put them on. Just a fun way to do things.
Yeah, so 40, you said 41 albums total, right?
Yes.
Yeah, because I have the list here in front of me, and it's a lot of albums.
Albums, man.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't necessarily have to. If we miss something, that that's no big deal. It's all fun. Because I already missed one when I made the list initially, and Jim called me out on it.
Oh, right.
As he should have. Well, damn should have, because then I called myself out because I never wrote it down in my freaking book. Terrible. Especially that album. Awful.
Trying to compile the list here.
So yeah, for me and him, our selection of everything we're going to discuss today is basically everything that we were here for.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do have an honorable mention for season 1 for one of the topics.
I do as well.
So that's where we stand on today's matter.
Okay.
So bottom 3 is what supposed to be your least favorite of the 3.
Least favorites.
Least favorite.
Well, this is still the top 5, right?
No. Well, yeah.
We're
starting from the bottom and going.
Yeah, we're doing the bottom.
Got it. Okay.
I have opinions.
There's nothing wrong with that.
All right.
Before we fly into it, I want to hit the chat.
Oh yes.
Thank a bunch of people that popped in here. Miss So. Always good to see Miss So popping in the chat. Johnny Stout. Glad to see you, brother. Freaky Louie. Good to see you, man.
What's up?
And I believe the rest of these are people on the panel. Yes. Uh-oh. There we go. So bottom 3. Who wants to go first?
Well, here, I don't know if I can do this, but just if people want to see the list.
Oop. Let me bring it in.
So I guess my bottom 3 would be the ones, because I had to cut out. I went MIA for a couple of weeks. But my bottom 3 would have to be the albums that I never had a chance to listen to or explore, except for the mega hitters, what some may consider the one hit wonders, if you will, right?
Right.
So Meatloaf, I don't think I've ever heard Bat Out of Hell. So, and there's another one that I wasn't too familiar with. And you guys can piggyback off of this and give me and tell me why I should listen to these and go back to listen to these.
Bat Out of Hell was a solid album.
Yeah.
I think you should listen to it. I agree.
What's the guitar? The guitar work is good. Is it solid? Is Meatloaf a guitar player or is he just the singer?
He's a singer.
He's just a singer.
He's the humongous rock star of the universe.
I think you would like it.
Yeah,
Javi. I think you would like it.
Jethro Tull. I think they're amazing musicians, but I just never really dived into their repertoire. Like Aqualung, I've never really listened to, but I did hear a story that one of the reasons why their music sounds the way it does is because I guess it's Ian Anderson, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was living in a really tiny kind of apartment complex, and below him or above him, there was a piano player who was just consistently practicing Bach and like classical music. And Ian Anderson took that because he was hearing it so much, and he just kind of like took that idea and made it whatever it was his own.
You should listen to it. You should listen to Jethro Tull.
Yeah, definitely that album.
I know one of my friends growing up really, really liked them.
You should listen to that album. I think you would like it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to. You can probably forget all their other albums. Definitely Aqualung. If you're going to listen to any Jethro Tull, Aqualung is the one.
What's up, Sleepy Reader? What's up, Journey?
What's up, CJ?
And what's your third one, Javi?
I'm trying to see. All the albums are really good. Maybe I gotta say, it's maybe the Black Crows.
Oh, somebody shoot him!
Hey, I know that's a good. I know they're good. I know that's the. I don't want to say it.
That album's on my bottom 3, man. That album for me is
in about 10 hours.
That one's on my bottom 3, so that's one of my bottom 3.
All right. So that's a segue to you.
Unruly, come on down, man. Come on down.
Not that it's bad, but I don't think it's among these albums. I just don't.
It's some of these albums have their own category.
Yeah.
Snake.
That's a whole different one. But
I was thinking about putting that one in my bottom 3.
No, Black Crows Black Crows is my number 3 album on my bottom 3.
But didn't Whitesnake have some crazy guitar player before he left the band, and then I don't know. I gotta rethink their history, but I think
they have original. A major revolving door in that band.
Yeah, I think their original guitar player was like very, very, a very good guitar player.
Yeah, Bernie. I can't remember his last name, but he was big in the definitely the early '70s circuit. They had Mel Galley in there too early on, who was a member of Trapeze with.
Unruly, you want to go with the bottom?
Oh yeah.
Well, I'll say this these are just because I haven't had a chance to dive into these albums. I got to go back, listen to them, give them a proper listen to.
No problem.
But go ahead, Unruly.
All right, now these they're my bottom 3. I'm not saying they're bad albums.
Right.
I'll tell you why they're in my bottom 3. Number 3 in my bottom 3 is U2 Joshua Tree. I like U2. I like a lot of their stuff, but this was in their pretentious we're going to save the world phase, and it was mainly college kids that listened to them, and at the time, I couldn't stand it. I like a lot of their later stuff better.
That's how I always used to feel too.
ZZ Top Eliminator. I'm a huge Top fan. First concert I ever went to.
Wow, nice.
I own all their albums up until Eliminator. That's when and God bless them, they made a shit ton of money off that disc. But they went commercial, and I've never forgiven them.
Is that where they did Sharp Dressed Man?
Yes.
Yeah. But now my number one on the bottom three, and it's a classic album. I mean, it was on the charts for like 10 years, but I've heard every single song off it so many times on the radio, I cannot listen to it anymore, is Dark Side of the Moon. And you know, who was it? Alan Parsons produced it. I like a lot of his solo stuff. I own every Pink Floyd album, including that one, and I bought a box set, and I've never opened it.
Wow.
And that would be my bottom three.
That's fair.
All right.
Did you hear the beef that Roger Waters and David Gilmour had recently having?
Another one?
What is it this time? Unpaid parking tickets?
Apparently, Roger Waters says he wants to re-record Dark Side of the Moon.
Really?
Why?
Wow.
Because he thinks he can make it better.
Because he wants to give Rudy something new to listen to. That's why.
There you go.
Is he trying to be James Cameron?
Probably.
His ego is as big as All Outdoors. That's for sure.
I agree.
Dark Side has some very interesting songs. Like,
great album.
I mean, I remember doing that album here on the podcast here.
That was
Brain Damage. Yeah, Brain Damage is a really cool song.
Oh, Brain Damage.
Time is a great song.
Animals is a better album. Wish You Were Here is a better album. I have spoken. I will brook no argument.
What say you, Hialeah?
Oh, why me, bro? Why are you asking me? All right, Unruly, that's your number one worst album? That's my number one overall album on this one. We're at polar opposites. I will never get tired of this album. It's my number one album. Pretty easy, actually. The other two albums, there's a couple of other albums on here that I really adore. And Dark Side, they're not even close to Dark Side. I'll never get tired of it. I think it's just perfect.
I agree that's not one I will get tired of either. I don't know why.
I can't. I'll get sick of a lot of these albums, but not that album. Ever.
You know, I just wanted to interject and mention what Unruly said about how the radio tends to overplay every song on the album, and you start to get sick of it because it's like, I have the album and I can listen to it, but then you get on your car, you drive on the road, and bam, they're playing the songs all day. Like every hour, you hear the songs off the album, and it starts to wear thin, and that really sometimes turn you off. Like some albums can be classics, and that they can play it on radio. Like I still fuck with the song because it's a classic. You know, like Michael Jackson's Thriller or Off the Wall. I can still listen to those songs nonstop. But then there's certain albums that, you know, I'm getting a bit worn out of it. One song, for instance, is Tevin Campbell's Here We Go. Can We Talk? That song, I love the song, but they played that a billion times a day on the radio, and I just got worn out of it. Like I cannot take it no more. I'm like, can we talk? No! I'm tired.
For me, with this album, it comes on and I'm turning it up. I never change any of the songs on this album when it comes on. I turn it up and I just love it all over again.
Maybe in another 20 years I'll be able to listen to it.
Yeah. once it dies down.
That's fair. Puff, do you want to try give a go at this?
No, man, go ahead.
You don't want to do the bottom three because you're just not.
I like I said, I only heard certain songs from these, but I can't really concrete give a bottom three or something like that. So,
got you. All right, I'll go next since Javi caught one of mine. You already guys know. I don't think I like the Black Crowes. I just don't think this album was really that good. My number 2 worst album is oh my god, where is it? Tommy. I just can't get into it. I like a couple of the songs, but overall I just can't. And maybe one of the songs is that I really like. And I don't think it's anybody's surprise. My number 1 is freaking Little Bo. Do the honors.
White Snake.
That is cringe all day long. I'll change. There's only
cheesy
one song.
80s metal is so good, dude. It's so good.
It is. And one of my top 5 albums is one of those albums, but not this album. This album is complete and utter trash except for one song. And going to the thing about hearing a song comes on of the radio on this album, I'm changing it and I'm turning off the radio, bro. I will not. I don't want to listen to this album ever again.
Here I go again.
No.
That's the super meme.
I'm gonna let you go last.
That song is a super meme.
Those are my 3.
All right, so is that me?
Yes.
All
right. My top worst 3.
Top worst 3.
Starting at number 3 would be the Eagles, Hotel California, because I absolutely hate the Eagles.
I was thinking of that the line
and
from the Big Lebowski.
And it's kind of and it's kind of like what Puff says. You hear Hotel California on the radio so damn much, you don't even want to hear Life in the Fast Lane or any of these. I don't even want to hear the Eagles anymore.
Wow.
Don't care. My number 2, White Snake, and my number 1, The Who. That album blowed so bad I wanted to off myself.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe if I had a couple hits of acid, maybe it would have been more.
Maybe, probably, yeah, right.
White Snake is a horrible album, but it's low hanging fruit, man. You know, that's why I didn't go with it.
Well, the thing about White Snake is like it's only got that one song that made him so popular, and I don't understand how one song could go on a chart of the top 100 albums of all time.
Yeah, I don't get that either. But Coverdale had a decent career before then, and he's put out a couple things worth listening to since.
Yeah, I prefer Coverdale's solo, his earlier solo stuff, and like some of the stuff he did with Deep Purple, like Burn.
Oh, John Stout.
And listen, Coverdale Page is a solid album. The one he cut with Jimmy.
Desperado.
That's like one of my favorite Eagles songs is Desperado.
Great. And I like Life in the Fast Lane.
See, that's one I could go without listening to again. Life in the
That's
Fast.
probably what made them super popular too. Their music
videos.
And I'm not an Eagles hater, but Hotel California has been overplayed.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah.
What's up, Kyle? What's up, Jay Hood? All right, Donnie, it's on you. Your bottom 3.
Picking bottom 3 in just about any list of music is really tough for me. But not in any certain order. Pet Sounds. Tommy.
Yeah.
And I'll just kick it to the street. White Snake. Because it is overplayed. I said it in the chat about the fact that it just does not hold up.
Yeah.
It doesn't stand the test of time.
It just sounds like a time capsule from 1987.
Yeah,
and that's the major thing working against it.
Like a time capsule of the worst of the 80s.
Did you do that one?
definitely. It's bad.
Except for Tawny. I think we can all agree that Tawny is fine.
Note the hint of no disagreement.
What's up, Terry?
I'm pretty surprised Pet Sounds is on there though.
Dude, I'm not a fan of Pet Sounds either. That's probably.
I used
That's like
to
a
be
ground.
a fan of
that's
Pet
like a-
Sounds, but
That's like a groundbreaking
It
Yeah.
is.
album.
it is.
It is.
I used to be a fan of it, but after we had it on the show and talked about it, I was like,
Made you like it less.
There are a few great songs on Pet Sound,
There is. There is.
but
Making top 3 best album of all time on like every list ever for 3
No.
songs. Come on.
I mean, it's not just the music though. It's the way that the recording was
Right.
done
I can
throughout it.
understand that. But
Yeah.
I don't know.
Can
that sounds like a song. What are we doing here?
Also,
I
can I
think we're alone now.
I was going back today and rewatching some old ones, and I clicked on the Pet Sound one, and we were talking about how Steve just couldn't get into it and didn't show up. And coincidentally, that was the last one he did. That was so bad, he just quit completely.
Oh man, the Beach Boys got to him.
Yeah. Who's going next?
I think it's you guys.
Are we doing what are we doing? Top 5 now?
No,
Oh,
little book.
bottom 3.
It's top.
Oh, okay, that's right. My bad.
The bottom, I'm gonna go with Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. Just
I almost put that one.
couldn't get into it. One song, I don't.
Yeah.
Even the one song wasn't that good.
I forgot all about that one.
Yeah, I thought about that one too.
It's forgettable.
Forgettable.
Yeah.
It's forgettable.
The second worst one is the Eagles. Couldn't get 2 songs in, and thankfully we got COVID, and we couldn't participate in the video.
That was the week we got COVID.
We were saved from
The apple don't fall far from the tree, huh?
Yeah.
Safe from Hotel by the Vid.
Yeah, we didn't. Once we got COVID, we kind of stopped listening to that album, so we didn't have to hear any more than that. And the final worst one,
Asana.
can't stand Tommy. That's the worst one we've done. It's if you want to know what it's like to be lobotomized for an hour, listen to the album. No.
No.
Let me tell you a story about Tommy. I owned all the Who albums. I had a music teacher in 5th grade, and it was right after that album came out, and she was enamored of that thing.
Oh.
And she would play it to us all the time. And it's the only Who album sitting on my shelf that's gathering dust.
Wow.
Yeah. I wish I wouldn't have bought it too.
It's a commitment.
There's so many songs on it.
Yeah.
And it's not like Dumb Pleb doesn't understand concept album, because like Bolt Thrower Total Chaos is like one of my favorite albums, and that's a concept album. So I don't know.
Bolt Thrower. That's a name I don't hear very often anymore.
No,
I just see Pinball Wizard on that album.
even that is just.
Oh, I
It's
like
okay,
that song.
it's
I like that.
okay.
I like that song a lot.
And they had a crappy movie tie-in, so that just the cherry on top. That,
There's nothing going for this album.
nope.
No. I agree.
It's just hilarious that you started to listen to the album and then you caught COVID and you're like, yeah, that's the album. Throw that.
Yeah.
I was like,
That tells you all you need to know, right?
hey, when it comes to an album and you listen to like the first 3 songs and they ain't catching on, and it's like I have no hope for the rest of the album.
Yeah.
The one thing I want to say about Tommy, the best thing about it is they redeemed themselves with the album that came next.
Yes.
Which is Who's Next?
An all-time classic.
Exactly. I couldn't say that any better myself.
Enough said.
And anybody else in the chat watching, please feel free to follow suit with Kyle and drop yours into the chat.
I got one of those, and I almost put in another one of those.
I almost put in the Sex Pistols one.
What's the next topic?
Nice.
Our
Beach
top
Boys,
five?
That must have been a great concert.
Yes, we want to move on to the top 5.
Yeah. Who wants to go first? I guess I'll go first.
Yeah, you go first.
All right. My top 5 are not considered the best albums on this list because a couple of these are ones that I picked before we did the top albums. Let me see. My number 4, I'm probably gonna go with I love Fair Warning, Van Halen. I'll never get tired of listening to that album. I just love that freaking album. Number 4 is an album that I had never heard until we did this show. And that's gonna be Highway 61 Revisited by Bob Dylan. That album, when we heard that album blew me away. I could see myself going back to that album pretty much for the rest of my life. That was truly amazing. Number 3. Okay, wait. Number 3. I'm gonna go. Oh my God. Number 3, I'm gonna go with Jane's Addiction because I'm a freaking Jane's Addiction fanatic, and I'll always be.
That's the one that you picked.
Yeah, that's the one I picked. That's another album that just takes me back to a certain time and where I was and everything about it. And it's just a phenomenal album. And man, number 2, who did I have for number 2? Shit. I think I'm gonna go with an all-timer. And I think I'm gonna go with an all-timer. I think Sgt. Pepper's. I think I'm gonna go with Sgt. Pepper. I really love that album as well. Everything about that album, dude, is fucking insane. And then when you hear the backstory and everything that they went through just as a band, that shit blows me away. So there you have it. And my number 1 was Dark Side.
Nice.
Solid.
We just 3 Beatles? You did Sgt. Pepper's, White Album.
Yeah, we did 3
and
Beatles.
Revolver.
Revolver, yeah.
That's wild.
And I loved each one of those, man.
Yeah, those are all.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. We got an echo somewhere, man. Who is it? Do you hear it? I guess it don't matter. Maybe it's me.
There's a lot. There's a lot of really good albums.
Yeah. All right. Who's next,
And
man? Who's next top
They're
5?
all.
I'll go next.
Yeah.
I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna pick the albums I never heard before. That kind of, I picked my top 5 out of that. Like I said, there's albums on here that I love more.
Yeah.
The Beatles, The Clash, Misfits.
That's cool, man. I wish I would have done that.
So
can I do my list again according to the Tao of Goat? No,
you can go at the end again.
Go ahead. I'll stay with mine. I'm messing with that.
So my number 5 albums I never heard before that I liked and was kind of blown away with was David Bowie's Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust. I really enjoyed that album a lot. My number 4 that I really enjoyed that kind of surprised me was the old Deep Purple Machine Head.
Yeah, man, that's a great album.
That one surprised the hell out of me.
That's you know, one of the top. They considered that album one of the first heavy metal albums.
Yeah, for sure.
Along with Led Zeppelin,
the guitar playing and stuff on that album was like hands down amazing. Yeah, the organ. All right, number 3. I heard multiple songs off this album because of the radio and stuff like that, but I never heard the album all the way through. That I really liked was Leonard Skinner's Second Helping. Same goes for my number 2 would be the AC/DC Highway to Hell.
Excellent album.
Phenomenal album all the way through.
Yeah.
And my number 1 album that I never heard or never would have listened to, but because of this show, it blew my mind to smithereens with amazement. And that was none other than Highway 61. Went out and bought it. I loved it so much.
Bro, that album just blew my mind when we did that album, dude.
It did. I mean, geez, I still listen to it.
Blew my mind.
I never heard it at all up until that week we did it on the show.
Blew my mind as well, dude.
Dylan, at that time period, Dylan was like a minor deity, because there was a brief period in the early 60s when folk music ruled the airwaves, and he was the folk man. And then when he switched it up and started to rock a little, he pissed off a lot of those people, but gained a whole new audience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, blame that on me, Kyle. I'm a dumbass. I've been called out about it.
Yeah.
Excellent list, folks. Excellent.
See, London Calling would have been my number 1 out of this whole entire list, but
the list according to the Tower of Gold.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll do a mix. I'll do a mixture of albums that I got introduced here to. First one being Morrissey, your Arsenal. I never really listened to the Morrissey or the Smiths. That one, I still go back and listen to that album.
That's an excellent album, dude.
Yeah, for sure. That's a really good album. Definitely Led Zeppelin 1.
Amazing.
The Beatles Revolver. I just like that one's a little bit more gritty, I feel like, than some of the other albums. That album, it has its hits, but there's also some more deeper cuts on that album.
So I really like Revolver too, just because it's kind of that transitioning stage from
right.
Yeah.
From the Fab Four to, where you're going into like Sgt. Pepper's and whatnot,
Yeah.
Before their sound change, that's when you can kind of see their sound change to where
their sound is changing, and you can hear the differences in the songs between, like, okay, Lennon or John wrote this song and then Paul wrote this song. You can see the different styles in those two. In the album, you can see the two different styles of music.
But you know what's wild is there's a lot of the songs they wrote together that in interviews in later years that they don't know who wrote what part, and they'll attribute it to the other guy, or they'll fight over who wrote what part. They were just a great team.
Yeah, like in Taxman, Paul, I think, did the guitar solo.
Yeah, pretty sure.
Taxman.
Yeah, I think that's their best album. White Album's my favorite, but that's their best.
Deep Purple, Machine Head.
Heck yeah.
I think that's Led Zeppelin, Revolver, and then my fifth one, Black Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. That's a great album for me.
Nice.
Yeah. This has been discussed, Kyle. we have brought up the idea of having. We don't know which one to do though, so stay tuned.
Ill communication.
I gotta say, Stevie Wonder though. I gotta put that album on there too if I can add another one.
I love that Sabotage song though. Like that was one of my favorite Beastie Boys songs from the 90s.
Timeless.
Sabotage.
I guess I'll go next. Okay, so
we have an echo. I just don't know where it's at.
It might be me.
I don't hear it.
My number 5 pick was actually an album I wasn't here for.
Okay.
And didn't hear when we did review it initially, and that is Doors self-titled.
Excellent, man.
Great album. Phenomenal.
Excellent.
Very, very good. Number 4 is one I got, I guess, ear glimpses of, and that was the Pixies Surfer Rosa. I listened to that album recently, and I went back and listened to their whole discography. Yeah, the album is really, really good, and I guess I'm a fan now. Number 3 is a album I heard songs from. Remember the beat.
Excellent.
Show that thing. Heck yeah.
That was my youth.
Week and my number 2. I'm surprised I'm
Fuck yes. Fuck yes. Sorry.
My number 2, and this is one I'm surprised no one has picked yet. And the top 3 or top 4, basically all the top 5, are albums I listen to very, very regularly. Number 2 is Cream Disarray Gears.
Excellent.
So good. So easy to come back to. And my number 1 favorite album that we've done, it's probably become top 10. This is the Deep Purple.
Wow.
Sounds so good.
That's awesome, dude.
I didn't really like this one at first. I listened to it a bunch more and
fell in love with it.
That's awesome.
So perfect.
And that's one of those albums we would have never listened to
never.
if we weren't doing this show.
Nice.
And that is without a doubt their best album.
Yeah.
Right.
And I've got everything they put out in the 70s anyway.
That's the waist side. Okay.
Sean, do you want to put a stamp on anything that you might think you could put in a list?
I mean, the only thing, I'm enjoying this conversation, and some of the songs I did hear, when we travel out of town and they will play them on the radio and other stations, and I did get Thin Lizzy, I love some of their songs that came out, and I've heard The Who, but Guns N' Roses was probably one of the few that I liked it, when I first heard of them. And Welcome to the Jungle. That was my jam growing up. And of course,
nice.
And I love Queen. Freddie Mercury was another one that I grew up listening to because my mom was a big Queen fan. So, there was a lot of songs that I've heard, I've heard some Beach Boys, I've heard some Iron Maiden, but I never really dived into their music because it wasn't always played in the household. So
Right.
But I'm just enjoying the conversation of you guys just naming your top 5s and what they mean to you. That's the beauty of this show, Mastodon.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Going on that and what Jim and Boat said about not hearing these albums otherwise, and that aspect right there is what keeps me wanting to do the show.
Yeah.
Is the fact that it has served its purpose. It's brought new music to people as part of the panel or part of the chat that otherwise would never listen to it. And I absolutely, I love that thought. It's
and when you go back and watch the show, I did with you and Hialeah on Stevie Wonder. I think Hialeah said that was his first time listening to that album, and it blew him away. And that's the thing. Hearing you guys saying, "Oh, I would have never had this album on my list had I not been on this show," and that's the beauty. Is like I would have never listened to this album, but then we chose to do this album, and you're like, "Damn, this album was really good." And, it starts. Yeah. You start listening to it more and more. And now it becomes one of your favorites.
Yeah. Yeah, like Doors and Iron Maiden on my list were the only bands on my list I've heard of prior of doing the show.
Are you serious? That was it?
Yeah.
The Beatles.
Wow.
Well, the Beatles, Clash.
My top 5.
Right.
Yeah, I'm a huge Beatles fan. Clash, of course.
That Flash Gordon album by Queen, man, I could listen to that because I love the movie, and then I listen to the soundtrack because Queen just is great on that.
For me, as much as a bottom 3 is tough to come up with, a top 5 is even more incredulous because knowing and Unruly will understand my comment coming is the fact that we haven't done my favorite album of all time. Mm-hmm. And I'm okay. I'm okay with that, and I'm also okay with the fact that we've not done my favorite Iron Maiden album of all time. That there's other albums that I haven't heard, specifically on the list coming up that we'll be doing. Call it season 3, call it what you will. But of the albums that we've done, again in no certain order, Songs in the Key of Life. Just because it gave me the opportunity to have someone I consider a really good friend come on the show and talk about something that he really enjoys. Songs in the Key of Life was Sean's pick, and I want to thank him. I mean, I even told him after the fact that when he said that was his pick, my head about exploded because I was happy that we would get to do that album for reasons like not having listened to it for a while. It brought me back to that album and it gave me a chance to listen to it in a consistent setting. Just like Unruly said, he owned the 70s. There's only one other person I can think of besides him, maybe 2, that might have been up there just as much, and that'd be Elton John and David Bowie. There's the Elvis. Well, Elvis owned the 50s with Alexa Chuck Berry. But anyway, Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath would probably be another one. Just because I'm a huge Sabbath fan, huge early 70s rock, doom metal, which they, one-sidedly inspired.
Yeah, for sure.
And the story behind it, which we'd probably get into later. But I know when we discussed that album, Javi had brought up how they chose to record in a freaking castle. It's so cool. Obviously, I'm a big Cream fan. I'm gonna set that in for an honorable mention because I love that album, but I like their first album more. I can't not mention Number of the Beast or Killers. because Killers is the album that got me into Iron Maiden and made Iron Maiden my favorite band. The Doors is such a classic album. It's another one of those summer love albums that we did. I'm knee deep in my soul is that late 60s, early 70s stuff. I just can't get away. I can't escape it. But the top album for me is the one that kicked the show off, because it's a one I would have never listened to otherwise, and that's Van Halen's Fair Warning.
Really?
It's just a different
nice
thing for me. And not only that, but that episode gave me a chance to explain myself for my opinion towards Eddie.
Right.
Not, I mean,
I remember that show, bro. It was right after Van Halen died, and hey, Donnie, you want to come on and or just do something? And
as Unruly said at the beginning of the show, I have opinions. Just let it go at that.
Oh my God.
But it kicked the show off. It going all the way back to that episode 2.5 years ago. I was glad I did it because it fueled the concept that we talked about. The show has meaning as a result of that first episode.
Very cool.
And I love it. I see some awesome early names being dropped in the chat.
Ray Charles.
Stuff that we could probably come down to in the future. Ray Charles, how can you not like Sabbath? Yes, I agree. Ozzy, Dio, Ella Fitzgerald, any of that early stuff. Ella Fitzgerald, Sister Rosetta. I would be remiss if I didn't mention some of these influences, like Ella and Sister Rosetta and the Checkers.
All right, I got my top 5. If we're ready.
Yeah, we're ready.
Let's do it. Do it.
Number 5, Master of Puppets.
Yeah.
Freaking Metallica was the shit.
Yeah.
Then they put out Justice for All, which might be even better. And then they put out the Black Album and promptly sucked for the next 2 decades.
Unreleased
Including the Black Album. The Black Album sucks, donkey. But their last 2 records have been pretty decent. All right, number 4. Jane's Addiction, Nothing Shocking.
Such a
love
good
that album. Love the next one, Ritual.
Yeah.
It's like that dude had 2 great albums in him, and that's it.
And it was enough. And it was enough.
That was enough.
That was enough.
Number 3, Bowie, Rise and Fall of Ziggy. That's always going to be a classic. If you want to talk about somebody else that owned the 70s, it was David Bowie.
Yeah.
He had an incredible freaking run in the 70s. All the way up through the early 80s, really. So what was that, 3 for me?
Yep.
Number 2 is Zeppelin 1. Dude, and listen, if y'all can track it down, about 10 years ago, Page did I think his 3rd set of remasters of the albums. And included in that disc, they did the whole first Zeppelin album in a concert in France before it was even released. And the guy introduced them as the New Yardbirds, and it's off the chain good.
Dang.
If you can track that down, it's worth buying.
Yeah.
And my number 1 album is Hendrix, Axis Bold as Love. That's always going to be my number 1 album. It's like that dude was in his own universe. not just guitar playing, but song structure and lyrically, he's so underrated as a lyricist. Plus, go back and look at pictures of what that man just wore every day. The 60s were the stupidest fashion decade of all time, but he was cool as nails in everything he wore.
Yeah.
If I've said it before, and if I could go back in time, I wouldn't kill Hitler. I wouldn't buy 30 copies of Fantastic Four #1. I'd go back to about a month before Hendrix died and kidnap him and just slap the shit out of him every day for a month. Get your shit together and live for another 50 years.
Yes.
And that I believe this concludes my top 5.
Yeah, that's
excellent top 5. Excellent.
A guitar player unlike any other.
Just the flair, the showmanship that he had when he was up there on stage playing. I mean,
yeah.
There's other guys that come into like Jimmy Page but just he had a presence, and I don't know how many other guys might have had the presence that he had. All right, artists, not just men.
I want to say this. Growing up, my dad was huge into the funk, and this was one of the albums, Funkadelic, Maggot Brains.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
Between Funkadelic, Parliament, I mean, George Clinton was like top tier. Like every week, not every weekend. He will play it once every weekend in a month. And it's just nonstop funk. And I grew up loving them, Earth, Wind, and Fire, the Isley Brothers,
nice.
Roy Ayers, and a bunch of other bands. Heat Wave, not the Isley Brothers, but what was the other one? They're not coming to my mind. They were just in my mind. But I grew up listening to all those. And my aunts and uncles used to make fun of me because I was
Commodores. Commodores?
Not the Commodores. Not the Commodores. It was another
Cool in the Gang?
No.
They were another good one, though. I like the Cool in the Gang. But
damn, I wonder who it is. That's okay, man. I'm sorry.
My uncles used to make fun of me because they like, what's this young kid listening to Earth, Wind, and Fire? But what he know about this music? That's music we grew up on. So they will make fun of me, playing Earth, Wind, and Fire nonstop. And this is around like the late 80s, early 90s, when hip hop was getting big. And I'm like, he's not listening to hip hop yet. He's listening to more our music, and they will make fun of me. And I didn't care because I love Earth, Wind, and Fire. They was my favorite band growing up. Like, for me as a band, their performances, Maurice White, Philip Bailey, the guitar work of Maurice's brother.
Yeah.
Oh man, it was just awesome. And I was fortunate to see them live around 99, 2000.
Nice.
Just to see Earth, Wind, and Fire live was an experience on itself.
That's awesome.
Like if we talk Earth, Wind, and Fire, I can go in on days on that.
Nice.
Man, we should do it. I should do Earth, Wind, and Fire. But that Funkadelic album is amazing.
Yes,
that Funkadelic album is if you guys have not listened to that album, anybody here in the chat, that is a great album. Great songs.
When I saw
heavy
it
hitters
at Blackbird Comics,
yeah,
I was like, I gotta have it. I got to have it. Like the cover is the inspiration what led to Redman doing There's the Dark Side. When he did his cover,
nice.
It was pretty much the inspiration from this.
Yeah, but you got the perfect blend of rock and funk.
Yeah.
Was
another album that I listened to like a couple months ago, and I've listened to it in the past, but I really like paid attention and listened to it. It's a hodgepodge of different styles of music into one, and that's Miles Davis's Bitches Brew.
Oh man,
you talk about like just putting every type of musical instrument into an album and just playing it all at once. Oh man, my ears was ringing, but I was liking what I was hearing.
Yeah, that's some heavy stuff there too.
Yeah, I've got most of the shit Miles did in the 50s and 60s. I own.
Nice.
Yeah, but that's another topic. We can get into that in another episode.
Yeah, that's its own.
But Silver Knight Kyle brought up Stanley Jordan. I was able to I was blessed to see Stanley Jordan live, and it was a trio. It was him on guitar, a drummer, and a bass player. And he's an amazing guitar player. He does this two-handed tapping that he's super popular for. But he did this thing where he was playing a solo, right? And then he looks at his drummer and he grabs his guitar. He's playing his guitar, right? So then the drummer's playing the cymbal, and then he takes his guitar and he starts playing the cymbal with his guitar while he's soloing. Wow. And then the drummer gets up, and then they do like this like rotation around the drums. It was insane. It was like they were like playing each other's instruments while they were soloing in one song. Yeah.
That just puts me in mind of some Weather Report madness.
Oh yeah, rest in peace, Wayne Shorter. That's another great band, and group of musicians that everyone should check out too.
Jaco Pastorius. Oh my God.
So Donnie, what's the next topic? Because I'll be getting ready to dip soon. I do want to talk a little about Stevie Wonder.
All right, next topic. Do we want to do production stories or album covers?
Production stories.
All right, let's do that. Yeah. Because we ran into some awesome stories.
I guess I'll kick it off. The one thing that still stands out to me out of all these, and I believe it was Hendrix when he left half of the master in the back of the cab, and so they had to re-record all of it in one night.
That's nuts, bro.
Nuts.
To be that cab driver and find that laying in the back seat.
Jeez. Imagine if I ever got out.
Or to be Jimmy and say, hey, I've lost it, then let's do tomorrow. I mean, I couldn't imagine trying to remaster, re-record all of it in one night. That was probably the most memorable that I could think of off the top of my head.
That's pretty insane.
Besides the London Calling with their producer throwing ladders and chairs and
well, the London Calling, is that the one where Rock is that a different album? Rock the Casbah?
No, that's Combat Rock.
Yeah, that was after. That's when they sold out.
Yeah, I heard some that's the classic story of the drummer just laying down all the tracks or something like that for that one song.
None of that album. It's
just that one song.
Yeah. I think for me, the one that sticks out the most is the Sex Pistols debut with all the crap with Glenn Matlock and Sid Vicious and Glenn quitting, and then Sid overdub or
they fired.
Yeah,
they fired Glenn.
Fired Glenn for loving the Beatles. And then Sid played backing bass over Glenn so he could technically be credited for it.
But you can't hear him in the song.
Yeah.
It's
I
like
think that's my favorite too.
it's like here's the bass guitar, but they didn't plug it in.
Yeah.
I think that was my favorite too, man. That you just, and then you see who they are, and then you just know that shit had to be a shit show. It just had to be a fucking shit show, and they still put out an album. And that's one of the greatest ever. You know, it's just great. That one blew my mind, dude.
Yeah, that's the big standout for me.
Yeah.
That song has a crazy story.
Anybody have anything else?
Ooh. I'm gonna step in real quick, sorry. I guess another one I like to mention is, hold on, let me grab it real quick. And I think this one probably goes over the Sex Pistols, so I'm gonna switch mine real quick and change it to Static Age, the unreleased album that was shelved for some 20 years.
25 years.
They had an old label called Blank Records. They gave the rights over to, I forget which record label, and in exchange they gave them 30 hours of production
studio time.
They made a 17 song album, and it just never got around to being put out. They gave it to like 100 labels. They're like, this is crap, you're never gonna go anywhere, get out of here with that. And it just rotted on the shelf for over 20 years. The album was recorded in 78 and didn't get released until 1997.
Yeah.
So I think that one has a more extreme story.
I agree with that.
I agree. What about you, Donnie?
Mine was I can't remember which album it was, but they were recording next to was it no, it wasn't Black Sabbath. I can't remember who it was, but whichever band it was recording, and they were recording in the same studio.
I think that was
Freddie Mercury,
Sex Pistols,
Sex Pistols, and Queen.
And they were so loud that they couldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, that Sex Pistols it takes it. It's the best backstory.
My favorite production schedule is while they were recording Ziggy Stardust, they recorded the album that became Hunky Dory at the same time.
Yeah.
But Bowie said, well, shit, we can't play hardly any of this live.
Yeah.
So they released Ziggy first. I thought that was pretty interesting.
I think Stevie Wonder was a workaholic to the point where he had no sleep, very little to eat while working on songs of Key of Life. And, I think Nathan Watts, one of the bass players, said he had left at 3 a.m. after a long studio session with Wonder and others, only to get home and Stevie Wonder calls him like, hey, I need you to come back because I got some new work to do on I Wish. And it's like the amount of hours you stay in the studio working with him, and he was a perfectionist, man. He was like on point. Everything has to be perfect. And I can imagine him driving people insane, in terms of the studio producers, the musicians, the singers, the backgrounders. Like, I can imagine working with somebody who's such a perfectionist. And that's him in the stories of James Brown and how he was, always on point with how the portion of the music plays, and he's going to play it again. And Stevie Wonder was like that with the production schedule of songs in the Key of Life.
Yeah, I mean, I know for Intervisions, he did everything. He recorded all the tracks. So, yeah.
And this between like Intervisions and songs, like those are like the two that I fight myself with, which one I enjoyed the most, like the best, because you cannot dispute any of those classics that he put out in the 70s. And whatever one is your favorite, I can't argue with, because those albums were classics for
reasons.
Right.
There's a handful of great artists that do that record everything. Prince was like that, you know. He had a backup band, but he recorded all the instruments.
Yeah.
George Michael was like that.
Mm-hmm.
He had people come in and play it, but he worked it all out on every instrument himself.
Really?
And I mean, George Michael isn't considered rock and roll, but those 2 or 3 albums he cut while he was alive are pretty damn good.
They're excellent. They're excellent albums.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, just the ones that stick out for me. I mean, I don't have any stories per se, but as far as production value, I mean, I brought up Pet Sounds earlier. Any of the Beatles albums, I'm sure being in the studio with them must have been a crazy experience. I think, you know, don't quote me on this, but I'm sure Master of Puppets, you know, if you go back and listen to Master of Puppets, that's not just one guitar part. You know, they probably had to spend time layering.
Oh yeah, there was
guitars, because
like
that's
like over 8 layers.
Yeah.
Like
the mastering that has to go behind that. The Scorpions did it where they would layer like 20 guitars on top of each other. Then Alice in Chains took it a step further, and they like would record one guitar track with just the top 2 strings, and then another guitar track with the middle 2 strings, and then the next guitar track with the bottom 2 strings. That's pretty crazy. But yeah, Donnie, you mentioned it earlier, the Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. That was during a time where Black Sabbath was kind of like reaching commercial success, but at the same time, they were all kind of in their party mode, right?
Mm-hmm.
But trying to also write a new album. They said, what's the best thing we can do? We're kind of all running out of juice right now, so let's rent out a castle and then just try and record and see what we come up with. And
yeah,
the stories go so far as to say that they were playing pranks on each other, and like spooking each other while they were sleeping in there. But yeah, that must have been pretty crazy.
Another one of my favorites is Machine Head. The whole production scenario behind that, where they went and they rented that space, and some jackass burns the freaking place down.
Yeah.
So they have to move and record in this other place, and they set it up in a mobile studio, and they were on there with the freaking screen, and that was their communication method, so that they didn't have to keep going outside. They're on the edge of the freaking building and coming out to look at the playback. They just got rid of all that scenario and just went with it. I mean, I want to point out all the engineers that worked on any of these albums,
right,
have patience of saints.
Yeah.
Any of these scenarios, and they deserve huge amounts of credit. The engineers and the producers, just the amount of creativity that they were able to spawn out of some of these bands, given certain situations and scenarios.
Definitely.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah, I'll piggyback off of that. The Doors album. That, I mean, not a lot of people realize. Light My Fire. All those songs, they sound so good.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Break On Through to the Other Side. Those songs sound so good, but it was literally it came out in 1967. It was recorded on a 4-track.
Yeah.
They had 4 channels to record vocals, drums, organ. And if you record drums, you have to record the bass drum, the snare, the hi, right?
Yeah.
It's a different world.
Yeah. They made it work. Timeless. I think we mentioned that word a lot in the episodes where like these songs, these albums are just timeless.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I know, like last month, the Common Call crew, we was talking the blaxploitation films, and one thing about those films is that they had amazing soundtracks.
Mhm.
We were talking about
yeah.
Marvin Gaye's Trouble Man,
Yeah.
Shaft by Isaac Hayes, and then he did Truck Turner. I was listening to that a couple days ago. I love that soundtrack, and of course you had Herbie Hancock. He did the soundtrack to Sat by the Door. There was so many great visionaries when it came to musicians and what they put forth with those music and how they could tie it into a movie, and they have a production schedule that, we got to have this soundtrack ready for when the movie comes out. And you look at Shaft, and that song was huge. Like, everybody knows the theme of Shaft, and Isaac Hayes' voice just fit perfectly over it. It's just one of those timeless tunes that you can just listen to and just, you start singing the hook, like, who is the man? And you just vibe into it. And I just love all those soundtracks that was made in the 70s when soundtracks meant something.
Right.
Yeah, you don't really have too many modern soundtracks that are great or even good that I could think of.
Yeah, well, the guy that's the best at the soundtrack game now, but it's mainly it's older songs from the era you're talking
Guardians
about.
of the Galaxy
is Quentin Tarantino.
Oh yeah,
he kills it every movie. Yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy was pretty good too.
Yeah.
Yeah, Quentin definitely does a great job picking like old songs to fit his movie.
Yeah,
they just brings back a nostalgia. Like, man, I ain't heard that song in a long time, and then you start, listening to it.
Not just the movie, but those specific scenes. Those. I mean, I don't want to know what goes into those thoughts, but holy shit. And speaking of soundtracks, one of my favorite movie soundtrack moments is Desperado with Link Ray's Rumble.
Oh, yeah.
Perfect freaking song for that scene.
Yeah.
Oh, Batman. Prince album.
Yeah.
And listen, have any of y'all ever heard of Tangerine Dream? They were a synth band in the late 70s and early 80s, and they moved units pretty good for what they did, but then they got into soundtracks, and they did so many damn soundtracks. If you saw a A- or B crime movie in the 80s, that was them.
What?
And they did a couple of bigger movies. I just can't think of any off the top of my head.
One of my favorite ones that they did the soundtrack for is 3 O'Clock High with Casey Simasco.
And listen, I know a lot of comic geeks that love the Queen soundtrack to Flash Gordon.
Yeah.
It's such an iconic riff, Flash, savior of the universe.
The soundtrack is better than the movie.
Yeah.
It is a bad movie.
It's a cult one. It grows on you.
It's fun one for what it was.
Yeah, it's a fun one.
If there's one thing, I'll take the bad movies of the 70s and 80s over today because at least they had creativity with them.
Yes.
Yeah, they weren't a bunch of remakes.
Yeah. All right, guys, I gotta head on out. Man,
be good, Puff.
It was great hanging out with you guys.
Good seeing you, sir.
Be good.
Thanks for coming on, Sean.
See you, Puff.
No problem.
See you, bud.
Nice seeing you, man.
Soon. MegaCon.
I'm jealous.
We're trying.
All right. We're doing album covers. Is that our next?
I think we have the same pick, don't we?
What happened?
Yeah.
Ooh, okay. Our favorite album cover, and I think it's agreed on.
With both of you?
Yeah, it is the best album cover ever. One Colin. It's just is there a better album
iconic.
cover?
That's an iconic cover.
Not only is it probably the greatest punk album cover, but just rock album cover.
You want to talk about album covers that top the list of iconic.
So good. It just encapsulates, or I don't know. I guess
it captures.
It captures. I guess just a feeling of just like chaos, like the blurry camera, him smashing it. It's just so perfect.
Yeah.
Do you guys know where they got that from?
It was from a show.
Yeah, it was a live show. And
no, but I think the inspiration was off of an Elvis album.
Elvis, yes.
Yeah, Elvis.
The reasoning was Elvis was like the birth of rock and roll, and they were going to end the rock and roll, I guess.
Yeah, you got to mention
start and end it.
There's not a bad song on that LP.
That's a great album.
Yeah, it's dedicated. Honorable mention. This one, I think this is. Other than Famous Monsters, I think this is the best album cover. It's so perfect.
Well, listen, y'all done stole my best album cover. That's definitely it. But I guess my honorable mention would be Ziggy.
Yeah,
that's just a classic photo.
Yeah, that monochrome look.
Which one do you got, Javi?
I don't, man. That's tough. I'm like looking at the list right now.
I'll go then. I was torn between London Calling because it's just perfect.
It is.
But another one that I think is perfect, and it's to the band.
I know what it is.
I do too.
You might not know.
I'm gonna know.
You're not gonna know, dude. It's the Sex Pistols.
Gonna know.
I did not know.
It's the Sex Pistols. I was torn. I actually was thinking the Sex Pistols first, and London Calling. I think that they're both perfect. I think their album cover is perfect as well, man. It
is pretty good. It's not the Yellow album cover, but it's good.
I think it's just perfect for their band. It's just perfect.
Yeah.
I wouldn't expect anything. It's between those two for me.
What
did you think I was going to say?
Sgt. Pepper.
I was thinking AC/DC.
I think Sgt. Pepper's an easy choice. I think that's the
Meatloaf
easy choice.
Bat Out of Hell is pretty awesome too.
Yeah,
it is pretty badass.
That would probably be another top contender for me.
That guy was a comic book artist.
That one was
Hank Fury, that's another good one.
Yeah, there's so many. I mean,
it's hard. That was really difficult.
I think Disraeli Gear. Disraeli Gears.
Dude, that one is excellent.
Because it's like, you know, the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. That one is cool. It has got all the people on it. You know, I was gonna mention Led Zeppelin 3.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know how Hialeah was going to feel about that one, or I don't know which one it was. If it was Hialeah or Donnie that said that didn't like that.
I think it's me. I think it's.
That's a tough album. That's a tough cover to look at.
I like the album. I can't stand that album cover. It might be my worst album. Well, no, I'm still gonna put Whitesnake in there. That's my number one worst album cover.
Album cover.
That one's so bland.
Whitesnake.
Hey, whoa. What about Nothing Shocking?
Oh my God!
That is a killer album cover.
Yeah,
that is a killer album cover too.
And that was a piece of art that Perry made himself.
Yeah, he made himself.
He made himself. Yeah, I remember.
That's an excellent album cover, but there's so many.
Led Zeppelin 1 is amazing too. I mean,
yeah,
such a great cover.
And it's not on our list, and I said it earlier. Santana Abraxas.
Oh yeah.
It's the all-time album cover to me. When I was a kid in my first apartment, that album was on the wall.
You know what album was on my wall? One of your favorites, the Joshua Tree.
That one actually almost made my list. That one was close.
Man, I like Pop is their most underrated album to me.
I love Pop, man. I think that album is fantastic.
And you know, I think critically and commercially, it's probably the least of their albums.
Yeah, it's
not that it didn't sell a bunch,
right?
But there's so many great songs on that album. It's just way underrated.
Way underrated. That was kind of like them trying to do. That's when all the DJs and all the synth, more electronic sound that they had. That album's great, man. I think that album is fantastic too.
The song Miami,
excellent.
When back when I used to party, if I'd come home at 2 or 3 in the morning, stoned and drunk, I'd crank that fucker up and just repeat 5 times.
It's a great album, dude. It's a really good album. I enjoy it too.
Hey, how about we do best album not on the list?
All right. We got to think about it. Donnie, did you go? Did you go though? Your album cover?
It's tough. So many. Iron Maiden, you can't go wrong with Derek Riggs' art.
Not at all.
If I had seen those albums when they first come out in the record store, you couldn't have got me out of that store without one of those albums. There's absolutely no way. I probably would have got tarred and feathered when I got home. But Disraeli Gears, just like Sgt. Pepper's, screams summer love. That 60s, late 60s psychedelic. Yeah. Surfer Rosa I've always had a soft spot for that cover. That's Topless Senorita. Mm-hmm. Big fan of boobs right here. Hey, you want to talk about albums that are hanging on walls? I have Folsom Prison.
Nice.
Full for a City. That freaking image of Steve Preverett fishing in the sewer.
That's a classic.
Hilarious. Molly Hatchet's first album, The Death Dealer, and Frampton are all hanging on my wall right now. And I put those up there for a reason. They're just dope ass covers.
Nice.
Carry on.
Right. Rudy, what was it that you just said? Album that wasn't on this list. I guess you have yours. I think I have mine. So if you want to go ahead, and we'll get this started for these guys to think a minute.
Mine is a band called Gang of Four, and it's an album called Entertainment.
I have one that's more perfect than mine, Colin.
And if you haven't heard that album, I highly urge you to at least listen to it online. Go through it twice. I don't even know how to describe it, but there's a lot of bands that list it as one of their major influences.
Yeah.
What was it?
Gang of Four. The album is called Entertainment. And there is not a bad song on the album.
No, there is not. That's a wonderful album.
But they did that, and they did an EP, and then never heard from again.
Wow.
He's looking for his records. My favorite, and I'm biased because it's my favorite album of all time, from my favorite band of all time, and it has the greatest album cover of all time. Full screen this thing, Donnie. This thing.
He's right. Right. He's got it.
Right.
He's in the chat now. Things have changed.
Yeah.
He's got a good one.
He's official.
Are
He's
you ready?
official.
This is the greatest album cover ever.
I mean,
best album and one of the amazing album covers.
The photographer was on the money with that.
That is an excellent cover, man. That is an excellent cover.
On the street side.
Yeah.
It's so perfect. And the thing was, they couldn't stop complaining through the entire thing. They were like,
Of course not.
That's excellent.
My pick's gonna be Pantera, Vulgar Display of Power.
That's a good one.
Hell yeah.
Cowboys from Hell's a great album cover too.
Oh, I love that.
Sure.
Love it.
The Blink
What are we
182,
doing? We're doing-
Enema of the State.
What exactly are we doing? Greatest album covers still?
No,
That aren't on the list?
we're just free balling, man.
Yeah,
Oh,
we're shooting the shit.
oh, okay. All right, sorry, I got
was-
lost.
I grew up. Blink 182 is one of my favorite bands. So Enema of the State, Take Off Your Pants and Jackets, the Mark Tom and Travis show. That's their live album. And then you get to hear them like goof off and like crack jokes. A lot of that stuff, a lot of their jokes probably don't or may not fly for today's time, but hey, it is what it is, right?
I have one more. Sorry.
Let him
Yeah,
finish.
go for it.
Sorry. Go, let him finish.
Yeah.
Any of the Mars Volta albums, if you like experimental rock, it could be a little.
They're Puerto Rican, right?
The guitar player is Puerto Rican, and they're singers from Mexico, Texas. It might be a little hard to get into at first, but yeah, check them out. But they have really cool album covers also. Yeah. Those are the kind of the two ones that stick out for me as of right now. And we can't get into jazz and instrumental stuff, but try to not dive into that stuff too much. Go for it. I know you're dying. Go for it.
This one comes close. It's another one of my all-time favorite album covers. This one's really good.
Nice.
That's like a wrestling cover, man. I love it.
That's an iconic cover right there.
It's a wrestling
Devil Locks.
Yeah. Again, with the Ramones one, the album cover is exactly what the album sounds like.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Any of
Absolutely.
the
Alien Sex Fiend, almost. I don't know if anybody knows them. They're a lot like the Misfits.
any of the AFI album covers are really good too.
Oh yeah, I like AFI.
Yeah.
The boat you mentioned Bolt Thrower earlier. Bolt Thrower had some amazing album covers. Them, Sodom. If you've ever heard of Sodom, they're a thrash metal from Germany. Blind Guardian, also a band from Germany.
Yeah.
Dude, like every Megadeth album cover ever.
Oh yeah, that goes without saying.
Ooh.
Knucklehead, freaking right.
I have to think. There's some really, really, really good ones.
Rhapsody, which is like a fantasy like metal band. They have a lot of, like really cool album covers. A lot of that fantasy metal stuff is.
There's so many out there too. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
They're kind of cheesy. They're kind of cheesy, but I like the Black Flag album covers too.
Yeah.
The Pettibon art ones.
My War, dude. Yeah, that's where it's at.
There's a Pat Travers album. I can't remember the name of the album, but it's one of his early ones. It's the album that Boom Boom Out Go the Lights is on, and it's the front. You have to look at the front and back. But like on the front, he's sitting in this record executive's office with amps, and he's about to play his guitar, and it's an old man sitting at a desk. And you flip the album over, and the old man's glasses are shattered. All the pictures on the wall are shattered. It was a cool idea.
Is that putting it straight?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Let me see if I can bring it up.
But you got to have the flip side. That's what makes it.
Come on.
And I'm not a huge Pat Travers fan. I'm not a hater, but I'll always remember that cover.
The Bad Religion has that one cool album cover where it's like red. I don't know if you've seen that one. That was a really cool album cover.
And hey, the one Puff showed, Maggot Brain, that is a classic.
That's an
that's-
ugly cover.
Get that. It's over on the.
You know what? That's another cover that I think
that one is.
when I saw it when I was a kid, it's like, man, I want to hear what's Highway to Hell, ACDC.
That's another one of my favorites.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
great.
that's a great cover.
I always like this album cover just because it's shiny.
Because it's shiny.
Shiny. Oh, yeah,
Steppenwolf.
It's shiny.
Yeah. Some of the Velvet Underground covers
Yeah.
were pretty dope. My pick for album that we haven't done yet or that's not on the list is The Replacements' Let It Bleed. And yes, that is the ripoff of the Rolling Stones album title. I love that cover with them. They're just chilling on a roof, and they just look like a bunch of kids from wherever. Such a great album too. I love that album. There's not a bad song on that one either. I found the front cover for that. Nope. Right there. There's the front cover.
The back cover is every piece of glass is shattered. I think there's smoke marks on the walls. It's cool as hell.
Check out them boobs.
There you go. This one. This one. View image. Stop sharing. Present.
Yeah, it's crazy how much you have to think about. Brings you back to that Spinal Tap moment. Trying to think about the album cover, right? And then they get all their albums shipped to them, right? And they open up the box and it's just black. It's just a black album.
Well, that's shitty. That is not going to work.
Oh, you can kind of tell.
Man, I need to rewatch Spinal Tap. I have not seen it in 20 years.
And check out their other movies because they did other movies that it's not just Spinal Tap.
Oh, dude, Best in Show is fantastic.
It's hilarious, yeah.
Best in Show is freaking.
Maybe this one's better. Nope, page not working. And it is pretty funny. That old guy's just sitting there like, what just happened? I can't find a good picture of it. Blogspot. Oh, maybe this one will work.
Oh, the internet. What did we do before it?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it works a lot better.
I mean, whatever this thing on his desk is smoking, and the freaking pictures are all disheveled. And he's like, and Pat's like,
dude, my little brother in the 80s was living in Orlando, going to main sale or full sale, whatever the name of that school is.
Full Sail, yeah.
And there was a club in Orlando. I drove down there one night with my girlfriend, and Pat Travers was playing at the club he was working at. It was pretty cool.
Wow.
And the next night was Flotsam and Jetsam.
oh, wow. Now, that would be Flotsam and Jetsam when Newstead was still in the band?
Let me think. It was 89. So
Okay, so he wasn't.
Yeah, we did a lot of album covers. Or I remember doing talking about the Thin Lizzy one that had that kind of comic book inspiration in the middle. And then we talked about the Black Sabbath one.
Mm-hmm.
That was like the dark and the light. on the front and the back almost.
And listen, their last was Never Say Die was their last album, right? With Ozzy before the split. I love that album cover.
Yeah.
I love that album. I know a lot of people hate those last two albums, Technical Ecstasy and Never Say Die, but I love them.
I prefer Never Say Die over Technical Ecstasy. I don't know why. It just they are different albums, but they're
All right, gents, I have to boogie. I worked yesterday and today. I'm going to go eat and crash.
Be good.
It's 6 o'clock. I'll be asleep in an hour and a half.
yeah.
Oh yeah. Get some rest, man.
Be good.
It was cool
care.
seeing all of y'all. I love this series.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Love you. Be
Yeah,
good.
man.
thank you,
It was
Unrolling.
great to see you.
It was 4.
Oh yeah. 5.
5.
5, yeah.
5, yeah. Sure.
We got any topics? We got any topics left?
Nope, that was it.
All right.
Do you want to spin the wheel?
We
Do you
wanna-
have the wheel ready?
yeah, I believe so.
Oh yeah, spin. Let's do it.
That wheel. Do a good album.
Dude, good albums. What's wrong with you?
Oh man.
Just remember, if it's a bad album, you might have picked it.
I'm excited for this
All
one.
right, so
It'll be a lot of fun.
Which one? What happened?
I'm excited for this one.
Really? You're already excited?
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's great.
I picked albums on this one. That's
I got you. I could see your
Enthusiasm.
enthusiasm. Yes.
We got their System of a Down, Blue Oyster Cult, the B-52s,
Out Come the Wolves, Social Distortion,
Sublime.
Sing Sing Death House, Mile Gets to College. These are all so good.
And they're all gonna be the last ones we do. You're gonna watch.
Yeah.
For those to come out.
Big money.
all right, so Javi, the premise behind this next season is I asked everybody to pick 2 albums that they would really like to do.
Yeah.
So I mean, there was 2 that we had, the Blue Oyster Cult and the System of a Down album are kind of gimmies because we had talked about them in passing.
Yeah.
So I threw those on there to start the list. I picked mine. My albums were Sublime and Venom's Black Metal because I kind of want to learn the story behind black metal. To be completely honest with you, and then Raul picked the B-52s and LCD Sound System. I listened to some of the LCD Sound System, and I really liked what I heard. I've never thought about this is what I love about this show. It's something that it's something new. Just like Rancid or Out Come the Wolves, I've never really listened to them too much, and so I started listening to that one. I'm like, oh, wow, I like
Who
this.
picked that?
That was one of Jim's albums.
Rancid?
Yeah.
That's in your neck of woods.
Yeah. Well, we can talk about that, but a coworker of mine grew up with Tim Armstrong.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Jeez. Lucky.
Yeah.
We ready or what?
Yes. You ready to spin it? Find out. So we got 10 albums, so it's not going to take us as quite as long.
We're not doing 8
I mean, it took us a year and a half to do season 2. That's like the longest season ever.
Oh no! Hey, our new boss is not going to let that happen again.
System of a Down. That's a great album.
Start off strong.
I remember getting that one when it first came out.
That's a little weird because that's the first album on the list.
Is that System of a Down? System of a Down? They're self-titled.
Yes,
album?
yes, it's self-titled. Yep.
Oh, I got a story about that one.
Oh,
You might have to come back.
Yeah, man. I gotta come back.
you know this, Javi. You're always welcome.
Yeah, as long as Sundays are good for me. Yeah.
Then you're on.
Yeah, I got a story about that one. That's gonna be cool.
That's awesome, dude.
All right, so I guess when do we want to do episode 1 of season 3, System of a Down?
Oh, do you want to figure that out now? Let's do that off air.
Maybe end the show. Maybe we could end the stream and we'll talk backstage.
All right, so schedule is subject to change. I want to thank everybody, as always, who was popping in the chat. We had Comic Journey, Silver Knight Kyle, K-Pop, Sanimation. Please forgive me if I miss anybody. I know Sleepy Reader was in here. Jay Hood. Thank you everyone for coming and joining us as we discussed some of the albums that we've done. Johnny Stout, always good to see you. And Metarog was here with us in spirit. And I want to thank Unruly and Stay Puff for joining us again. Eternally grateful that we got to get Javi back on the show with us.
Yeah, man, definitely.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much.
So cool. This was so much fun. And I'm glad everybody was able to make it. I know Steve was with us in spirit.
Yes.
And I guess we'll see you whenever. In the meantime, get out there and listen to some music.
Heck yeah.